You're watching ProPix Canada Media. I'm James Cousineau in Vancouver, British Columbia. As you know, a lot of companies out there get reported on in the news when it comes to moving and relocation services. I just want to bring you a story that tells you a bit about what to watch for and how to screen out the less reputable movers. First of all, if you're hiring off of Craigslist or Kijiji and those sites, they advertise extremely low prices for 2 men and a truck. Now let's take a look at this. I've seen them for $65 an hour for 2 movers and a truck. So if you're paying $65 an hour, let's say that at a low end, for inexperienced, untrained movers, they're getting $20 each an hour. Okay, so there goes $40. Now let's take a look at WCB, the vehicle insurance, vehicle maintenance, vehicle fuel. Now when you add all of these in, you're probably looking at least another $15 an hour. Okay, and then you have to look at freight insurance. Now freight insurance is not cheap either, so that's not covered by your standard auto plan policy because it's a commercial vehicle. Then you have to look at other factors such as income tax, corporate tax, the liability insurance, and so forth. Now, when you take that into account, that still hasn't factored in phone lines, advertising, marketing, all of these things. So when you look at that $65 an hour, what are you getting for that? Chances are you're getting a company that's going to hit you with a bunch of hidden fees. They are probably going to hit you with taxes upon taxes. So make sure, for example, in British Columbia, you only pay the GST portion on moving services. The 7% PST would only apply for moving supplies and packaging. So that's something else to keep in mind. Now, when you have assembly and disassembly of furniture and other items, some companies charge more for that. Well, you're already paying by the hour, so why should you have to pay additional service charges to cover things like an excess number of stairs, to cover furniture dismantling, to reassemble furniture, for, just the list goes on, that some companies just add service charges that just get ridiculous at the end of the day. You can contact other movers that will provide you with a rate. They send you an email confirmation, and for this example I will use Kary Movers of Vancouver. That's Kary Movers of Vancouver, and I do this in full disclosure is that it is my brother's company, so I'm quite familiar with how the industry works. I'm also very familiar with the companies out there that are fly-by-nights and that are taking advantage of customers. There are also companies that want to go out and get the weight and measurements of your load. So this here, again, if you're going on a long distance shipment, if you have a designated truck, so that means that the truck comes, loads your stuff and your stuff only, and then goes to the destination, say from Vancouver to Calgary. Okay, the amount of space in the truck is the same. If you are paying for a direct fleet, which means that you get the truck to yourself, so you're not mixing your goods with other people's bed bugs or mice or whatever else other people may have in their shipments. So you're the only one who has things in that truck. It is picked up on that truck, it is transported in that truck, and then it's delivered out of that truck. And that just makes your life so much easier because there's no cross-docking, things aren't getting multiply moved and shuffled around in a warehouse or onto other trucks and so forth. So it can save you a lot of headaches. The other benefit to a designated truck is, of course, that you can get your shipment loaded on your schedule. It goes to the destination city and is delivered on your schedule. You don't have other people's shipments on the same truck that you have to work around. So these are just some of the different factors that play into it. You also don't have the risk of any of your items being mixed with anybody else's and accidentally delivered to someone else and then never see it again. And so these are things to keep in mind. If a company does not have workers' compensation coverage, you are on the hook. If somebody gets hurt and the company is not carrying WCB or covering their employees, then they can come back to sue the resident of the home that hired them or the homeowner. So that is why when you are dealing with strata contracts and corporate contracts, government contracts, all of that, there is a requirement in most situations for corporate and government work to provide a letter of clearance from WorkSafe BC or your local WorkSafe affiliate. So these are things to keep in mind. Now, going back to the weight issue, if you get a flat rate, a guaranteed quote, that is what you pay, plus your tax, which is 5% GST. By paying by weight, you don't know what the weight of your goods are. You don't know if they are properly weighed. You don't know if the scale numbers have been fudged. And it's just a horrible way to look at it, because if your stuff fits in the truck, then, you know, that's all there should be to it. And the weight shouldn't really matter too much. Let's see, what else was I going to cover here? Of course, with the city rates, in city, generally the best option is not to go with a flat rate. It's actually to go with an hourly rate. And the reason for this is that when you are factoring in a local move, you have to go higher if you're doing a flat rate in terms of the pricing. You don't know what the access is going to be. You don't know if it's if the elevator is going to be broken down. You don't know if you're going to have to park a distance away from the building. You just don't know all of these variables. So what happens is that many companies will factor in contingencies such as this into the flat rate. At the end of the day, it costs you more almost every time than it would for just paying by the hour, which means that essentially most companies charge in half-hour increments. So you would pay from the start time to the finish time. If that takes 4.5 hours, then you'd be paying 4.5 times the hourly rate. And generally, 1 hour is generally the reasonable or industry standard for a travel time. That's a block rate, getting the driver and the truck and the swappers from the dispatch office to your location and then returning afterwards. So those are some tips for ensuring that you are covered and that you're getting a reputable mover. So when you look at the price, don't just base it on price alone. That's the biggest mistake that people make. For the extra savings, if a company breaks your television and they're not insured, or does damage to your leather recliner, things like that, it can add up real quick and your savings are gone out the window, and you owe on these repairs or replacements that the insurance that the company doesn't have, of course, is not going to cover you because it doesn't exist. So make sure that they are insured, make sure they have WCB, make sure, you know, all of these things are important. So those are questions to ask. Something else that is in the industry are people who decide to pack on their own, which is great. I do suggest that you watch some videos online on YouTube just to make sure that you're packing correctly. One of the big issues that costs people money is using produce boxes and just liquor store boxes and that. When they're all different shapes and sizes, it takes longer to load, to unload, and to move them about. So if you can get uniform size moving boxes, at the end of the day, you're going to save the money that you spend on those materials. You're going to save generally on the hourly rates by a big number. So you're usually far off, better ahead. So those are some great tips for you to make sure that you're aware of. Again, service fees and charges. If it's not in your written quote, then you know that really, unless it's something way out of whack. You know, like you've got a grand piano you forgot to tell them about when you booked the move, and they've got to call in a third person. You know, those are outside of the normal realm. But within reason, you've got to say no. These service charges are ridiculous. As again, within reason. So once again, written confirmation is so important. When it comes to your delivery, your pickup and your delivery, you can have that in your contract so that you've got a written confirmation, you know when to expect your goods. Of course, you know, there's some flexibility with the drivers if you are delayed a bit, but overall, you're pretty on time for the scheduling, and the drivers are even more on time in most cases than the customers, so that's good. In terms of self-move, so some people want to hire a U-Haul and rent a U-Haul or a budget rental truck or whatever, and then they have issues when it comes to, especially this time of year, with mountain conditions going from BC to Alberta, for example, or across the ice-covered prairies. So just keep in mind that you're going to be paying for the truck, you're going to be paying for hotels, you're going to be paying for any damage if you do have an accident. Make sure you get the coverage. Just different things like that. So you want to price it out, but you also want to make sure that you are safe. If you haven't driven a big vehicle before, then it could be very risky for you to take the chance by driving long distance in a truck. If you do go that route, of course, you can always call a moving company to help you load the truck so the weight is evenly dispersed properly, and to make sure that the truck is secured in terms of the shipment, so there's no shifting and that sort of thing. So you can always hire movers to load your U-Haul and to unload it. You just go to movershelp.com and they can and it's right there. You can get the prices, all that stuff. So that's one. If you're in Metro Vancouver, I recommend 3J's moving service for the U-Haul help service, moving help. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Again, it could be, at the end of the day, with all the expenses and everything else, it could be much easier and cost efficient to just hire a moving company. But again, you should look at the numbers and decide what's best for you. Okay? And in terms of deposits, generally local moving companies do not charge deposits on booking a move. Okay, on long distance, it's very normal to pay a deposit, a percentage of your move costs, up to 50% depending on the company. I know for a fact that most are lower, but I would say at the very highest you go 50%. Now the balance is due at arrival, so when they arrive at the destination prior to unloading, they will collect on the balance of that. And some people are concerned that what if there's something damaged? Well, that's why you make sure that the company is insured and that you have your copy of the bill of lading and the terms on it, so this way you're covered. But again, if you fail to pay the bill at the end of the move, then the insurance wouldn't be valid anyway. So that's just something to keep in mind. But reputable companies, they carry insurance for those purposes. And for that reason, that accidents do happen. They're rare, but they do happen. Again, going back to the Craigslist or Kijiji movers at $65 an hour, how much insurance do you think they cover? How many experienced and well-trained employees do they have if they're charging $65 an hour? And obviously their workers are making, a fraction of that. So something to keep in mind for the moving and the different scams and that are out there. So just be careful, be safe, and use your common sense. Check with the Better Business Bureau, confirm their ratings. Some people this day and age don't like the Better Business Bureau ratings, but they are there for a reason, to help you and to give you a position of negotiation or of rectifying any situations through their mediation. So you could have, those extra things in place that protect you as well. And just check other ratings as well. But just keep in mind that, just because a company may have one or two bad ratings, it doesn't mean overall. It could be a customer that wasn't prepared. It could be a customer that is never going to be happy. It could be a customer looking to get something for nothing. But I'm just saying, like, the majority of reviews are valid on any moving company, but they are also subjective to individuals. So just be careful of that. That's why I recommend the Better Business Bureau, because there is a verification process and there is follow-up with the complaints, and there is a mediation process that can help you to resolve any issues if they were to arise. So once again, if you are looking for moving help in Metro Vancouver, again, movinghelp.com, it's through U-Haul, and the company I would recommend on that site would be 3J's. And then in terms of moving for local long distance and residential, commercial, all of that sort of thing in Metro Vancouver and Western Canada, of course, I'm going to recommend my brother's company, Kary Movers, Kary, movers.com. But there's also other companies out there, such as VICS, VICS Moving in Langley. Very good company as well. And Metropolitan, they're good out of Vancouver. So there are options out there. So shop around. Don't necessarily let the price dictate who you hire, because it could cost you much more in the end. Take care, everyone. Once again, I'm James Cousineau at ProPix Canada Media here in Vancouver, British Columbia. Take care.